Hey guys, I'm Tasha the Amazon, and you're watching Floralogic. And though this show is called Floralogic, we're actually all about delving into the world of both flora and fungi. So let's start our expedition into the world of fungi with one of the stinkiest on the planet, the aptly named stinkhorn mushroom. Mushrooms are universally beloved creatures. They look adorable, they taste delicious, they give Super Mario his powers, but the stinkhorn looks so alien and smells so foul, you would be forgiven for thinking a Demogorgon took a number 2 in your backyard.
Their smell, despite being nauseating to us, is a key part of their reproductive success. Most fungi reproduce asexually by releasing spores, which can then grow into another spore-producing individual. But like plants, fungi have a dispersion problem. How can they ensure their spores travel as far as possible so that the next generation can colonize new areas?
Most spores are very light and can be picked up by the wind, but stinkhorns took a page out of the tapeworm playbook and adapted to be dispersed by animals. This is where the stank comes in.
All stinkhorns secrete a substance called gleba, which is basically smelly spore jello. This gray goop smells like a combination of rotten eggs and putrid meat, which is exactly the type of thing flies love to eat. The flies will eat up the gleba in less than a day and fly off. Some fly species can eat over 1 million spores in one sitting, and the majority of those spores will germinate in the fly's digestive tract.
Gleba also has laxative properties, so after a day, the fly will defecate and the germinated spores will be released. The next part of their development is slowly growing into a ball, or an egg, also called a witch's egg.
These eggs already contain all the compressed components of a fully grown stinkhorn. Some species even produce edible eggs. The common stinkhorn eggs are said to taste like radish. During this stage, they're often mistaken for puffball mushrooms, but if you open them up, you can see a clear difference. Puffballs are usually uniformly white, while a stinkhorn egg's cross-section reveals different tissues of different colors and textures. After a few months in the egg form, they get ready to erect themselves. They pump water into the inner tissue and it expands while secreting gleba to attract flies. Soon after, the external structures break down and its life cycle is complete.
So starting out as an egg and growing into gleba-producing structures are the common features of stinkhorns, but the diversity of ways they do this is amazing.
The most common one is Phallus imputicus, or common stinkhorn, which gets its name from Greek. It means immodest phallus, and it can grow from a 5 centimeter wide egg to a 30 centimeter tall phallus in just 2 days. This guy is definitely a grower, not a shower.
Despite their amazing biology and diversity, stinkhorns are the bane of gardeners and picnic throwers everywhere. They can pop up literally overnight and stink up your entire backyard, and there's no fungicides that can prevent the growth of stinkhorns.
The veiled lady stinkhorn is a weirdly beautiful and apparently delicious fungus. It's found worldwide, but it's most commonly found in Asia, where it's used in stir-fries and fancy dishes like bird's nest soup.
In East Asia, it's considered an aphrodisiac. I wonder why.
And in Mexico and New Guinea, it's been used in religious ceremonies. But the coolest stinkhorn is the devil's fingers. This frightening fungus looks like something straight out of the mind of H.R. Giger. Not only do the eggs look like something from Alien, but when they sprout, these massive red tentacle-looking bits burst out of the eggs. When it's sped up, it looks pretty disturbing.
Just don't put your face too close to it. You'll probably be fine, but you'll smell like you were juggling rotten skunks.
The Australian anemone stinkhorn is like a baby version of the devil's fingers, with a few more arms and a deeper pool of gleba. This one is kind of cute in pictures, except for the weirdly bulbous stalk. The basket stinkhorn grows like a large woven sphere and can be up to 20 centimeters tall. It contains high levels of carotenoids, the compounds that make carrots orange, but we weren't able to verify that they're as delicious. Have you ever seen anything that looks like this? And the adorable dog stinkhorn, one of the tiniest stinkhorns out there, looks like something out of a fairy tale. Except its name doesn't come because pups like it, but rather because it resembles a doggie's reproductive organ.
There are over 70 more species of stinkhorns. We won't go through all of them, but if you want to see them and smell them, just go for a walk in the woods. There's sure to be some in your area.
And if your day gets ruined by the scent of rotting meat outside your window, just remember, it's the miracle of life. A penis-shaped fungus is making stinky spore soup so that flies will eat it and poop germinated spores in your neighbor's garden.
Rafflesia arnoldii is the biggest flower in the world. These guys can weigh up to 7 kilograms and stretch up to 1 meter across.
Now maybe some of you are thinking, hey, isn't a flower like Titan arum way taller? Sure, but technically that plant is made up of many tiny flowers.
Rafflesia arnoldii is the biggest single flower, a lone beauty.
Rafflesia is extremely rare and only grows in the jungles of Southeast Asia. In Indonesia, where Rafflesia is the national flower, it's referred to as Padma, a term that originates from the Sanskrit word for lotus. In Sumatra, they call it Krubut, which means great flower. The biggest member of the genus got its scientific name from Joseph Arnold, the first European botanist to have found one and made it back to Europe with his notes intact. Arnold named the flower Rafflesia arnoldii, after himself, of course, and the leader of the expedition, Sir Stamford Raffles.
Though it was actually Arnold's Malay guide who pointed out the plant on the expedition, despite sharing none of the naming glory. Typical.
The name Great Flower is well earned. Rafflesia has no stems, no leaves, and no roots. It only grows as a parasitic plant inside vines on the jungle floor, specifically one type of woody vine in the genus Tetrastigma. The parasite threads its way through its host vine's tissue, stealing its water and nutrients and growing stronger. When a bud finally manages to break through the vine's bark, it develops for about 10 months. By the time it's ready to bloom, the bud generally measures 12 inches in diameter.
The largest bud on record was 43 centimeters across. That's as big as a beach ball.
Finally, the flower blooms. In a process that takes several hours, the fleshy lobes unfold and bam, the Rafflesia in all its glory.
Bloomed Rafflesia has 5 leathery red-spotted petals.
They converge into a center chamber that resembles a massive pot. Is anyone else getting Val Plume vibes here? The center is large enough to hold 6 liters of water. Inside the opening are a bunch of spiky protrusions called proboscis.
Researchers still aren't exactly sure what the proboscis do, but one theory is that they produce heat that intensifies the plant's stench. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I forget to mention the Rafflesia stinks?
Rafflesia mimics the smell of rotting, dead animals, just like the Titan arum, or the corpse flower. The leathery, red, warty petals mimic flesh, and little hairs inside its center complete the illusion.
But why would you want to look and smell like a decomposing carcass? Hello, flies.
Carrion flies are immediately attracted to the male Rafflesia's stench and color. They buzz their way into the center hoping to find food and a place to lay their eggs. Once they're inside, a sticky mass of pollen is deposited on their backs.
In a perfect world, the flies would then transport the pollen from the male plant to the female plant for cross-pollination. But that plan only works if there's a nearby female Rafflesia. And since this flower is so rare, that barely ever happens.
It doesn't help that the flower doesn't live very long. Less than a week after its bloom, the Rafflesia rots and dies, leaving behind a slimy black mass. Kind of creepy looking, but then again, this is a parasite.
The Rafflesia was always rare, but now it's really, really rare. Of its 28 known species, 2 haven't been seen since the 1940s. Here's why.
Most buds never reach maturity or even get to bloom. They're often poached or harvested by locals, either to serve as a delicious Thai delicacy or to use in herbalism. Many believe that Rafflesia helps cure fevers, pain, and acts as a sexual stimulant.
Because nothing sets the mood like the smell of rotting flesh.
But the main reason Rafflesia is on the brink of extinction is deforestation. Humans are destroying its rainforests. And if its host vine gets destroyed, it has nowhere to grow. Hinging your species' survival on just one type of Southeast Asian vine? Pretty risky. But historically, that vine has fed the flower very well. So well that Rafflesia evolved into the biggest flower on Earth.
And that's nothing to sniff at. Get it? Sniff? Because it smells bad? I'll see myself out.
This plant is ready to go to war. It's the squirting cucumber. At first sight, Ecbalium elaterium, commonly known as the squirting or exploding cucumber, looks like your average flowering plant. This Mediterranean cutie is part of the gourd family, along with crowd favorites like watermelons, pumpkins, and of course, cucumbers.
Can we pause for a moment to think about the fact that watermelons and cucumbers are both gourds?
The squirting cucumber has pretty little yellow flowers and fuzzy fruits that vaguely resemble its edible namesake. Other members of its family rely on animals to eat those fruits and disperse the seeds through their feces.
But squirting cucumbers take a slightly different approach. They spread their seeds using one of the most dramatic dispersal methods in the world. They explode. It's called balakari, and it works like this.
The squirting cucumber's fruits have very soft cells that accumulate water to produce osmotic pressures of up to 27 atmospheres.
That's about the same amount of pressure you'd feel if you were to dive 260 meters underwater.
If the fruit is shaken and separated from its stalk, it sets off a chain reaction that makes the cells expand and shoot out the seeds. This is the famous squirt, and it makes the seeds fly up to 6 meters away from the plant.
Okay, let's see that again, this time in slow motion.
You can see that the moment the fruit falls off, it just starts firing. At the base of the fruit, there's a hole where it broke off from the stem. That's where the seeds and the fluids shoot out.
There even seems to be a bit of recoil every time it shoots. It's really a seed Gatling gun, like the Gatling P. Zombies, beware.
The only drawback is that it depends on water to build up pressure. So in dry conditions, their ability to shoot out seeds is decreased. If all the seeds fall too close to the parent, they might end up competing for resources.
Every fruit can hold up to 60 seeds, so just one explosion can start a small colony. This form of seed dispersal is rare but effective, and is used by several plants around the world.
This strategy has evolved independently in several plant families. Some other examples are the dynamite tree, whose exploding fruits can be heard from a distance. The Himalayan Balsam, whose seed pods explode spontaneously when they're mature, and witch hazel, which has a squeezing mechanism that can shoot seeds out at 45 kilometers an hour.
In the squirting cucumber's case, this seed dispersal method has helped them colonize a huge mass of land, from Central Asia to the British Isles. If you're one of the hundreds of millions of people that live in an area where these guys have squirted their seeds, you might be able to watch the show up close.
Your best bet is to look for them in rocky or sandy ground near bodies of water. They've also been observed at garbage dumps and construction sites. They flower in the summer, and fruits are at the largest in the fall.
Historically, they were used in folk medicine, but more recently, their usage has decreased, and their effectiveness has been questioned.
There have been records of people using this plant for thousands of years, going back as far as the ancient Assyrians. Their roots and fruits have been used to make different concoctions that were supposed to combat pain, inflammation, cirrhosis, hemorrhoids, and constipation. A study from the year 2000 showed that undiluted squirting cucumber juice causes irritation and inflammation of mucous membranes. Some of the symptoms are vomiting, pink eye, and inability to swallow.
So please, even though they might look like a natural version of Pop Rocks, do not put these guys anywhere near your mouth. They're literally poison. Today we're talking about Utricularia, which is Latin for small bag. We also know them as Bladderwort, which after Squirting Cucumber is runner-up for Euphemism of the Year.
This genus of over 200 species of carnivorous plants is found in freshwater lakes, marshes, streams, and waterlogged soil on every continent but Antarctica.
Given their adaptability to whatever their environment throws at them, you're likely to find them anywhere where there's shallow water or boggy conditions. Don't forget to bring your waders.
Bladderworts are divided into two categories: terrestrial, living in wet, waterlogged, or temporarily flooded areas, and aquatic, either suspended and free-floating on the surface, or fixed with a few shoots nestled in the substrate.
The main above-board attraction on these rootless plants are their colorful snapdragon-like flowers.
Such a wide range of species also means that bladderwort blooms come in a rainbow of colors, from red to yellow to purple to pink and white.
We've mentioned before that Big D, Charles Darwin, was a huge carnivorous plant head. In his 1888 book, Insectivorous Plants, he says the bladders offer the chief point of interest. And indeed, they do.
The bladder in bladderwort comes from the tiny sacs under the surface that the plant uses to suck in its prey at turbo speeds. Its victims include zooplankton, water fleas, aquatic worms, amoebas, and mosquito larvae, to name a few.
Fighting mosquitoes at the source? That's my kind of carnivorous plant.
The expression hair trigger is an apt description of the mechanism behind the bladderwort's impressive ability to capture its prey. Tiny hairs on each bladder trigger it to spring open so quickly that a vacuum-like force sucks in whatever set off the trap. The door then slams shut, sealing the delicious snack inside.
While the traps of the bladderworts are the smallest of all carnivorous species, ranging from 1 to 6 millimeters, they win the prize for the most sophisticated. Sorry, Venus flytrap, better luck next millennia.
To suck in its prey at such super speeds, each hermetically sealed bladder has negative pressure compared to the water around it. When the trap is triggered, water shoots inside, taking its victims with it.
The bladder is lined with two types of glands. One which secretes digestive enzymes to zoopify their prey and absorb the nutrients, and one which is responsible for pumping water. But glands aren't all you'll find in a bladderwort sac.
Did you see it? Well, I told you not to blink.
Within each tiny sac live commensal microorganisms, bacteria, microfungi, algae, and more. In this relationship, the microorganisms get easy access to food in exchange for helping the bladderwort break down its prey. But it's still not always clear to researchers which microorganisms are commensal and which are actually prey themselves. The ones that can't survive the low oxygen environment of the sealed bladder trap likely become the appetizer for the bladderwort's next meal.
There's still a lot that scientists don't understand about how Utricularia's complex bladders break down and absorb nutrients, and the detailed role that commensal microorganisms play in the digestion. Maybe one of you aspiring botanists will one day crack the code on Utricularia's mysterious bladders.
Owning your very own terrestrial bladderwort requires some special care and attention. In addition to a few hours of light a day, these water-loving carnivores need continuously moist soil.
Which, after all this aquatic talk, duh.
Master their care, and you too can experience the wonder and complexity of this highly advanced carnivorous plant at home. Policeman's helmet, bobby tops, gnome's hat stand. Depending on where you are, you might know it by any of these adorable nicknames. But don't be fooled by its cutesy, headwear-inspired aliases. This ruthless invader is here to take over.
Impatiens glandulifera belongs to the Balsaminaceae family, and the genus Impatiens, also known as touch-me-not.
These plants get their name from the Latin word for impatient, thanks to their aggressive seed dispersal. And impatient, they are. One slight touch and the ripe Himalayan balsam pod explodes, firing seeds up to 7 meters away.
That would be like if a palm tree could shoot its coconuts across a football field.
Himalayan balsam gets its name from its region of origin, the foothills of the Himalayas from northwest Pakistan to northern India. But this plant is hell-bent on world domination and has since invasively spread all across the northern hemisphere.
Once famed for its stunning ornamental beauty, the Himalayan balsam is now infamous for hijacking space, light, and nutrients from native plants. Basically, the worst houseguest ever.
And Himalayan balsam doesn't mess around when it comes to moving in on native species turf. Each individual, which can grow to around 3 meters tall, can produce up to 800 seeds in its short life. When mature, the seed capsules of these space invaders explosively roll up at the slightest touch. This dramatic display fires their seeds far and wide, ensuring their survival, and choking out their native neighbors in the process.
Now let's see those seed grenades again in super slow-mo.
In areas with established Himalayan balsam populations, and with all those projectiles flying through the air, up to 30,000 seeds can collect in a single square meter. Native species don't stand much of a chance against that onslaught. The seeds of the Himalayan balsam can also survive up to 2 years after it's been ejected, so you know it's ready to play the long game.
One of the main ways that Himalayan balsam spreads far and wide is through anthropokery, which is just a fancy way of saying good old-fashioned human beings. And this is why we can't have nice things.
Thanks to their good looks and pleasant perfume, people just can't seem to resist adding these trespassers to their gardens. And they're not just attractive to humans. Himalayan balsam produces large amounts of sweet, sweet nectar and becomes a regular watering hole for bees.
Drawing pollinators away from native plants is just another 1-2 punch these invaders pull to ensure their success.
But this plant isn't just a danger to native species. It may even be responsible for accelerated riverbank erosion. After pushing out native perennials, the annual Himalayan balsam dies off in winter, leaving the riverbanks it loves so much exposed to the elements and primed for erosion.
These meddlesome beauties are the definition of hit it and quit it.
Efforts are being made in particularly hard-hit areas to combat unwanted Himalayan balsam. In the UK, where the plant has been a pest for 150 years, self-proclaimed balsam bashers organize bashing parties to wipe out invasive populations.
Groups of volunteers get together to yank these out by the roots. Destroying invaders in hand-to-root combat? It sounds like my kind of fun.
A project headed by the Centre for Agricultural Bioscience International in the UK has also leveled up the battle against Himalayan balsam. After 8 years of research, a rust fungus that infects the stems and leaves was chosen as the best biological weapon against this invasive species. The fungus doesn't impact native species and has already started the slow process of eradicating this beautiful killer.
If you live anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere, you're likely to encounter the Himalayan balsam, either out in the wild or in your neighbor's front garden.
Though making pods explode might sound like a great way to startle your friends, to stop the spread, it's recommended not to let these go to seed. And definitely don't trade them at your next seed exchange.
Butterwort gets its name from the greasy look and feel of the leaves to us humans. But to ants and other small insects, the leaves are definitely more flypaper than buttered popcorn.
Now, while I know that the butterwort is just trying to survive, I do feel a little bad for the ants it eats, especially after experiencing life through their eyes thanks to this episode's sponsor. The Ants, Underground Kingdom, is the world's first insect simulation strategy mobile game. No longer will the ants be mere food. It's our chance to raise the anthill and stand up to the butterwort. In Underground Kingdom, you'll freely design your anthill, experiencing the everyday life of ants. Watching them go about their business is somehow both relaxing and exhilarating. You'll also get to explore diverse environments that are realistic and beautiful. You'll find beehives, snowmen, and even stones that look like gorillas. But be careful, you might just run into dangerous predators. lizards, and scorpions are not to be trifled with. To help you survive, Underground Kingdom features a gacha system so that you can easily acquire special ants based off of real-life species, such as the banshee panda. And you don't have to do it alone. You can join the alliance and fight alongside allies. If you're ready to help your ants overcome the threat of the Butterwort, you can join more than 20 million other players around the world in the first ant simulation strategy mobile game. And it's the best time of year to download the Ants Underground Kingdom. Use the redemption code in the description to get special rewards. The game has a bunch of bonuses for players on Christmas and New Year's, so it's the perfect time to start your colony. Butterwort is the common name for the carnivorous plants in the genus Pinguicula, which is one of 3 genera in the Lentibulariaceae family. We already covered one of the others, Utricularia, otherwise known as Bladderwort. They're aquatic, super sucker, flesh-eating cousins.
Like most carnivorous plants, Butterwort lives in nutrient-poor environments and rely on catching live prey to supply themselves with everything they need to thrive.
There are around 80 species of Butterwort, and they live throughout wetlands in the Northern Hemisphere and Central and South America, all the way up to the Arctic Circle.
As far as carnivorous monsters go, these flesh eaters are pretty teeny tiny, with the largest species, Pinguicula gigantea, only reaching widths of about 12 inches. Gigantea indeed.
Most Butterwort species have a flat rosette of broad, oval-shaped leaves around the base, with a few species sporting upright leaves. Some can gently bend their leaves in response to capturing a snack, while others remain completely still.
Help me!
The Venus flytrap, with its mechanical enclosure, definitely has to grind harder for its meals.
Each leaf of the Butterwort is covered in 2 kinds of specialized glands. The stalked glands produce super sticky, gluey mucilage to snare the prey, while the sessile glands, the ones that are directly on the surface of the leaf, pump out digestive enzymes to break down the prey once it's stuck to this superfine glue trap. Larger insects can easily escape the tiny mucilage glands, so the main prey of the Butterwort is smaller insects like gnats, aphids, and ants. And the more their prey moves, the more mucilage the plant produces.
It's like the quicksand of the plant world. Every movement brings you closer to death.
Even though the Butterwort is lights out for ants and other small arthropods, they rely on larger insects like bees and flies to pollinate their beautiful flowers. These gorgeous blooms come in violet, red, pink, blue, and white, making Butterwort a stunning addition to any carnivorous plant collection.
Active trappers, like sundew and Venus flytrap, which we've also done episodes on, rely on both mechanical and chemical signals to get to the digesting.
Passive carnivorous plants, like butterworts, rely solely on chemical stimuli to start breaking down their prey. The chemicals that are found in the exoskeletons of any trapped arthropods let the Butterwort know it's go time.
One study suggests it's not just arthropods that provide butterworts with their nosh. These plants are actually mixotrophs, getting energy and carbon from a cocktail of sources.
Butterworts were found to contain the digestive enzyme alpha amylase, also found in humans and other mammals, which breaks down starches found in plant material. The alpha amylase they secrete suggests they also break down and digest the plant matter that lands on their flat leaves, making butterworts the omnivores of the carnivorous plant world.
Butterworts are steak and potato kind of plants.
Known as pings to plant nerds around the world, these species are a favorite of carnivorous plant lovers. And happily, they're relatively easy to keep and propagate. If you're adding Butterwort to your collection, be sure to read about care for your specific species. They have different needs depending on if they're warm temperate, cool temperate, or tropical.
And don't forget to show them off to your friends as your only omnivorous plant.
This genus of around 170 species of parasitic plants can sniff out their victims before strangling them and sucking their life force. The evil cousin of the Convolvulaceae family of beautiful morning glories, the Dodder is one relative you don't want to tangle with.
Most species of Dodder have completely lost the ability to photosynthesize, lacking the chlorophyll that typically makes plants green and is responsible for turning sunlight into energy.
That's why Dodders appear in a variety of non-green hues, like yellow, orange, pink, and brown. And that's also why they need to sap off their hosts for energy, since they can't produce enough of their own.
The process of how a Dodder goes from seed to energy vampire is a choreographed dance that requires perfect timing.
Dodders begin as independent little seedlings, germinating in the ground with their own roots in the spring and summer. They emerge as leafless stems, which lasso counterclockwise until they find the helpless stem of a host to wrap themselves around, at which point their own roots die off.
Due to their basic AF in-house food production system, if these plants, which are definitely Team Edward, can't reach a host within 3 to 5 days, the seedlings will wither and die.
If they do manage to wrap their deadly tendrils around the closest host, they first cement themselves to the plant with a layer of pectin, a type of carbohydrate that works as a binding agent.
You're probably no stranger to pectin. You might have even had some this morning on your toast. It's the same stuff that makes jam and jelly deliciously gelatinous.
Within a few days of gluing itself to the host, the dodder's own roots die, and it sprouts haustoria, root-like structures that penetrate the host's stem and start sucking its juices.
I told you, the Dodder is a fang-wielding vampire.
Scientists have long wondered how the dodder locates its hosts. To add the bloody cherry on top of this cake of horrors, researchers at Penn State University determined that dodders can actually sniff out the chemical signals of their victims. And dodders have very discerning taste. They can tell plants apart based on their scent and will grow towards their faves.
I guess it's kind of like standing in a food court and letting your nose guide you to the closest burrito stand.
Once attached to their host, these Dracula wannabes spread at an alarming rate. Growing about 7 centimeters a day, Dodder can completely blanket an area of 3 meters square in a single growth season.
That's bigger than a double bed!
A dodder is an insatiable creature. Once established, it branches out to other surrounding plants to start sucking off of them too, making a thick mat of tangled, choking vines. And to add injury to injury, the dodder can actually transmit viruses from one host to another.
They're basically nature's super spreader event.
To complete its deadly life cycle, the dodder flowers. These cream-colored, bell-shaped blooms usually appear in clusters and produce 2 to 3 seeds each. One species of dodder, Cuscuta australis, picks up on protein signals from the host plant to initiate flowering. This synchronized flowering ultimately helps the dodder flowers attract more pollinators, therefore ensuring its continued success.
Dodder seeds can stay dormant in the ground for 5, 10, up to 30 years, depending on conditions. That level of immortality is something only a vamp can truly understand. Resistance against the deadly dodder may seem futile, but some plants have actually evolved to elude the dodder's deadly embrace. Some mallows, like the upland cotton and the Hawaiian hibiscus, both form a type of wound tissue that prevents the dodder's haustoria from penetrating its stems. This is the stake in its heart. With no energy to suck, this dodder is dusted.
Dodder only spreads by seed, so stopping them from going to seed is a great first step towards preventing future outbreaks. Extra precautions have to be taken when working in areas with dodder infestations. Clothing and equipment should be cleaned thoroughly to prevent spread. Because by the time you notice it spread to your area, you're already dead. Well, if you're a plant, of course. Bleeding tooth fungus grows in old-growth forests and often mountainous areas of North America and Eurasia. It belongs to the Bankeraceae family of fungi, which comprises 6 genera and about 100 known species.
But none of them have us humans as fascinated or horrified with a single glance as Hydnellum peckii.
Just like some people, this fungus goes through a wild phase in its youth. While it may look beige and boring when it's mature, its days as a youngin are super metal. The tooth part in their nickname comes from the fact that bleeding tooth are a hydnoid species, which means that they have tooth-like projections that produce spores and dangle from the underside of the funnel-shaped mushroom, also known as the fruiting body.
But the really metal part about them is that they cry crimson blood.
The blood of the bleeding tooth is actually an extracellular fluid that's squeezed out when there's too much water in the mushroom. If the ground around the bleeding tooth gets too wet, water is forced into the roots through osmosis. When the pressure this additional water causes gets too great, it squeezes out the crimson wave through pores in the cap of the mushroom. This process is not unique to bleeding tooth mushrooms. Lots of other plants experience guttation, like wheat, barley, strawberries, and other small plants.
The bleeding tooth fungus's juice is red because the water mixes with the red pigment found within the mushroom on the way up. There are many theories about the purpose of the blood, with some researchers suggesting it as an attractor for spore-spreading insects or as a defense mechanism to avoid getting eaten by animals. Red is, after all, one of nature's vibrant warning colors that screams, "I'm poisonous!"
This oozing only happens to young bleeding tooth fungi, which also happen to be covered in a velvety layer of hair-like structures. Once they mature, the dramatic bleeding comes to an end, and the velvet falls off, leaving this fungus as a pretty unspectacular, smooth, and bloodless example of a mushroom. Bleeding tooth mushrooms can be used as a fabric dye, but surprisingly, the result is not crimson red as you'd expect, but rather beige, and it can even be combined with other substances to make blue-green dyes.
The sap of the bleeding tooth mushroom is still not completely understood, but it's being investigated for a few of its unique properties that could be put to good use by us humans.
First of all, bleeding tooth fungus contains the chemical compound atramentin, which works as an anticoagulant to prevent blood clots, just like the heparin that's created by our livers, lungs, and other tissues. Atramentin has also been found to have antibacterial properties and may even be used to treat common strains of bacterial pneumonia.
While young bleeding tooth mushrooms might be meant to look toxic, they surprisingly are not. But it's still not recommended that you eat them. The extreme bitterness will have you regretting your decision, even if it won't kill you like a death cap mushroom would.
Bleeding tooth fungus are part of about 10% of fungi that are mycorrhizal, which means they have a symbiotic association with the plants that surround them by tapping into the plant's root system with their own root-like mycelia. In the case of bleeding tooth fungus, this association is with coniferous trees.
Bleeding tooth fungus are actually known as ectomycorrhizal, meaning that instead of penetrating the plant's root cells like other mycorrhizal species, the cells of the mycelia actually form with the cells of the hosts.
Mycorrhizal fungi transform minerals and amino acids in the soil into usable forms for the plant, helping them to better absorb these nutrients. At the same time, the tree's roots provide the fungus with carbon dioxide, which it uses to grow and expand its own root-like system called mycelium. While the mushroom, called the fruiting body, appears on the surface, the vast majority of the fungus exists underground.
If you see a bleeding tooth fungus, you can be certain that its massive mycelia stretches underground up to 3.5 meters away from the mushroom itself. Recent research has shown that the vast underground networks of the mycelium of mycorrhizal fungi store roughly 36% of the entire world's yearly global fossil fuel emissions, preventing them from escaping into the atmosphere and further accelerating global warming. That's 13 gigatons of carbon dioxide.
Ironically, however, another type of human-made pollution, called nitrogen pollution, is killing these essential carbon guardians. When we burn fossil fuels, it releases nitrogen oxide gas, which rains down onto forests. Nitrogen fertilizers, too, which are used in farming, can find their way into forests, causing mycorrhizal fungi to disappear.
When mycorrhizal fungi, like the bleeding tooth, disappear, it's a huge red flag for scientists that nitrogen pollution is upsetting the delicate balance of the forest microbiome. Transitioning away from fossil fuels is a huge step towards ensuring that mycorrhizal mushrooms can keep doing their essential work of keeping carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere. So, even if your tryptophobic tendencies are triggered by this bloody mushy, just know that it and its brethren are doing some serious heavy lifting to curb climate change, and they must be protected at all costs.
If you want to see these elusive weirdies, you'll have to look very long and hard in semi-arid regions of Madagascar, Africa, and the Arabian Peninsula. Currently, we only know of 8 species, but that number is probably due to the fact that they rarely appear above the surface, and when they do, it's in remote locations.
2 Hydnora species were discovered for the first time in recent years, but only because they were found in markets in South Africa and Mozambique being sold as traditional medicine. So what makes this plant so weird? Well, first of all, just take one look at it.
Hydnora doesn't look so much like a plant, but more like some claymation monster from a 1950s horror movie. They look so alien and unplant-like that they are often mistaken for fungi.
The next order of weirdness comes when you give it a whiff. Befittingly, this plant doesn't smell flowery like other flowering plants. Instead, it reeks of rotting flesh. More on why this stink is so important later. Adding to its rap of being an absolute weirdie, Hydnora will only very rarely and sporadically appear on the surface, and only to flower.
And when they do, they can cause significant damage, even having been known to hulk out and bust through asphalt to reach the surface.
So, if all that doesn't speak enough to their status as the world's strangest plant, let's dive a little deeper into their unusual attributes. Hydnora is one of the rare 1% of flowering plants that's parasitic. In this case, specifically, holoparasitic, meaning it gets 100% of its nutrients and carbon from its host plant.
As a result, Hydnora is one of the few in the plant kingdom that have no leaves at all. The primary function of leaves is to convert sunlight into energy through photosynthesis.
But Hydnora have completely lost their ability to photosynthesize. Therefore, they have no use for leaves. They spend most of the time underground as a rhizome or stem.
Not one to conform, Hydnora also completely lacks roots and instead uses specialized projections called Historia that worm their way into their host's roots to suck up their nutrients, water, and minerals.
This vampiric behavior seems to perfectly complement their monster-like looks when they do eventually pop up on the surface. Hydnora are choosy about the plants that they latch onto, only slurping the life from the roots of members of the legume, spurge, and torchwood families.
The name Hydnora itself comes from the ancient Greek word hydnon, which means truffle, a fitting name for a fungi-looking plant that spends most of its life hidden underground.
Because they have no leaves or roots, researchers have struggled since their first description to classify Hydnora. Initially, these plants were lumped into the Rafflesia genus.
If you follow the channel, you'll recognize this one as the genus that contains Rafflesia arnoldii, aka the corpse flower, another holoparasite that takes the prize for the largest individual flower in the world.
More recent genetic sequencing, however, has placed Hydnora squarely in the Aristolochiaceae or birthwort family. Most of the species of this family are tropical woody vines, so it makes sense that without the genetic information about these plants, researchers struggled to make the connection.
Hydnora and their closest relatives are in fact magnoliids, some of the earliest diverging lineages of flowering plants. This makes Hydnora one of the most basal parasitic plants we've ever discovered.
So while we know that Hydnora acts like a monster underground by sucking the life from its host plant, what's even stranger is what it does after the rains when it finally pops up to the surface to reproduce. Its reproductive style is described as brood site mimicry with imprisonment.
The fleshy flowers of Hydnora emit a stink from structures called osmophores that is similar to rotting flesh that insect pollinators, specifically beetles, simply cannot resist. To make sure the stink goes as far as possible, some Hydnora species are even able to heat themselves up slightly in a process called thermogenesis.
Imagine an aromatherapy oil diffuser, but filled with rotting flesh instead of lavender. Once their insect pollinators catch a whiff, they find their way inside the flower, and this is where the imprisonment part comes in. The beetles will feed on the osmophores until they fall deeper into the plant, onto its anthers, and become dusted in pollen. Then they'll fall even deeper still onto the cushion-like stigma, thereby pollinating the flower. When trapped inside the Hydnora, the pollinators are free to move around, but can't escape due to the high slippery walls and the cage-like bristles that edge the petals. Once their job is done, the Hydnora's petals will open up and the beetle is free to move on to the next Hydnora. This unique catch and release strategy helps to ensure the further survival of the species. Once the flower withers, the ovary turns into a large swollen fruit containing thousands of tiny black seeds that the local jackals and other small mammals go wild for.
The Afrikaans name for Hydnora is actually jakalskos, which means jackal food. The outer layer of the fruit is thick and leathery, but inside it's white, starchy, mealy, and very sweet, sometimes being described as having the texture of a potato.
The fruit of Hydnora are also used as traditional food for humans, which makes sense because they sound kind of delicious. Of course, after the corpse stink has cleared.
The fruit, rhizomes, and flowers of this plant are also used in traditional medicine to treat kidney, bladder, stomach, and throat conditions, as well as bacterial infections and menstrual problems.
They're used as an antidiarrheal and to treat a myriad of diseases like cholera, typhoid, and even cancer. The high level of tannins in Hydnora make it super astringent, which may explain why it's used traditionally to treat so many gastrointestinal conditions.
Although Hydnora was first described 250 years ago, we still know surprisingly little about these plants. The fact that they spend most of their lives hidden underground makes them extremely hard to study. We don't know much either about germination or seedling development.
The fact that they've proven almost impossible to cultivate in a lab environment makes it even harder to learn more about these plants.
Despite being elusive, they aren't endangered and are fairly common, lurking just under the soil of their native habitat.
While people claim that Hydnora is the strangest plant in the world, like so many other things branded weird, the lack of research into these plants proves that they're probably just wildly misunderstood. Once we're able to learn more about them, they may just be dubbed the world's most extraordinary plant.
Slime mold is in a category all of its own, since it's not a plant, animal, or fungi. It's actually technically an amoeba that lives in the soil. Amoebas are any single-celled organisms that have the ability to crawl, but different amoeba species aren't necessarily super closely related to each other.
Generally speaking, all amoebas, including slime molds, are enclosed by a cell wall and have at least one nucleus, which acts as the information center of the cell and controls and regulates its activity.
These slimy amoebas can be found everywhere. There are around 1,000 known species, and they come in a huge range of colors. They live all over the world, but they prefer the warm and damp forest floor of the tropics, where they have access to rotting vegetation and can feed on bacteria, fungi, and yeast. There are, however, some species that thrive in arid deserts and the cold of Antarctica.
Some slime molds have endearing nicknames, like living creepies, demon droppings, rotting mucus, and even dog vomit. I wonder what that last one looks like. Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting, but it's not good. No.
Slime mold is a bit of a blanket term for a bunch of organisms that look and act similarly, but they can be separated into two broad categories, cellular and plasmodial. Cellular slime molds operate solo, but when they do encounter a food source, they'll put out signals to their friends and family to join the feast. These individuals will then form a mass and goo around as one, but each still remains a single cell. This type of cellular slime mold is almost always microscopic and can't be observed with the naked eye.
Plasmodial slime molds, otherwise known as myzomycetes or true slime molds, can be seen with the naked eye and act very differently when they pile on.
The most famous and well-studied of the true slime molds is the highlighter yellow Physarum polycephalum, which translates to many-headed slime.
Like cellular slime molds, plasmodial slime molds turn into a pile of creeping goo. But in their case, when they form a mass, called a plasmodium or supercell, they become one single oozing unit.
When these true slime molds band together, the cell walls between them disappear, and all of the nuclei operate as one. This mass is full of a system of veins, which are filled with a jelly-like substance called protoplasm. Wrapped around the veins are long strands of proteins which squeeze and relax, causing the protoplasm inside to pulsate forward.
It's a system of locomotion that's utterly unique and definitely kind of unsettling. Unsurprisingly, the 1958 cult horror film, The Blob, was inspired by slime mold.
Slime molds have receptors that give them a form of senses. They can smell if food is nearby and see by detecting light. They can even sense moisture and pH level. The direction of the slime mold's pulsing is in response to the signals these receptors are picking up. With Physarum polycephalum pulsating at about 1 centimeter per hour at room temperature, it can respond to these signals at an impressive pace.
While slime molds don't have brains, they do exhibit pretty incredible behavioral intelligence. As far as a pile of goo goes, they can act much more intelligently than researchers ever expected.
Several studies have shown that slime molds will consistently find the most efficient pathways between sources of food. One study famously placed oats, which slime molds go crazy for, by the way, in the same configuration of the major hubs of Tokyo, and the slime molds were able to almost exactly mimic the subway system.
Japan's railway system, one of the most efficient in the world, was painstakingly created over decades by the best and brightest engineers, but the slime mold managed to accomplish the same efficiency in a single day.
To arrive at their highly efficient routes, first, the slime mold fans out to explore its territory. Once it finds sources of food, it'll strengthen the most direct pathways between them and let less efficient routes dry up.
If that's not smart enough for you, they've also been known to anticipate events.
In another study, slime mold was exposed to unfavorable dry and cold conditions at regular intervals. In response, growth slowed during those periods. But before the next regular period of unfavorable conditions even began, the slime mold had already slowed its growth in anticipation of what was to come.
It actually learned the pattern of these spells and took measures to protect itself before it was hit by the next wave of dry cold. I need you to know that where I come from, it's not uncommon to see people walking around in shorts in the snow. So you tell me, who sounds smarter?
In yet another experiment, a small bridge was covered in salt with a yummy snack placed on the other side. Slime mold isn't harmed by salt, but it definitely doesn't like it. In a journey that would normally take an hour, the slime mold first needed 10 to reach the treat while navigating the salt. On each progressive day, however, the slime mold needed less and less time to cross the unpleasant salt to reach its snack. Within a few days, it was breezing over the salt in an hour, as if it wasn't even there.
Pushing that experiment further, this first blob of slime was introduced to another that had no previous contact with salt. And within a few hours, even the new blob had learned to be okay with salt. So slime molds are capable of a kind of teaching and learning, which, if you ask me, is pretty damn smart.
To germinate, similar to mushrooms, slime molds will sprout up fruiting bodies that throw spores. And these spores can travel. Genetically identical samples of slime mold have been found in both New Zealand and the US, meaning that the spores somehow managed to make it more than 14,000 kilometers to set up shop on another continent.
The ability to travel so far and wide is also an extremely smart way to make sure you never run out of territory. So next time you have the urge to call someone a brainless amoeba, just know that you're actually complimenting their intelligence. So what should we talk about next? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for new episodes every week. See ya! This next sentence is delivered exclusively by the slime mold that has taken over Josh's brain. Okay, let's tell you more about slime molds. Isn't that right, darling? Delicious. I'm wearing a shirt made of slime. But in their case, get over here. Roomy? Room. La la la. Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's all cool. If that's not smart enough, oh my God. My cats are ruining everything. Get over here.
Didn't you see the sign that says rolling?
Okay, you tell us about slime mold, Suk Suk. Do you like it?